Rules for reading? Readers don't need no stinking rules. Hello, welcome to my channel. Another bibliophile reads. My name is Greg, and today I am doing a response video. Earlier last week, I saw a video from Alison Talks Books. She mentioned that there were 26 rules for reading in 2026. These are rules created by Ryan Holliday. And then a day or two later, I saw Brian at Bookish also commenting on these 26 rules for reading in 2026. And I decided I have to throw my hat into the ring and make my comments, my opinions known about these 26 rules for reading. Now, Ryan Holliday, if you do not know, is an author, lecturer, internet influencer, and an owner of a bookstore in Austin, Texas. Holliday is widely credited with popularizing Stoic ideas for a broad audience, though some critics argue his version simplifies or commercializes Stoicism compared with academic or traditional philosophical interpretations. Now, both Alison and Brian did a fairly good summary on Ryan Holliday, and I'm not going to repeat that here. You can go watch their videos and get a better idea who this man is. He does have some interesting stances. He is a strong proponent of not banning books, and I do appreciate that. But if you want to learn more about him, go watch their videos. Now, when I learned that Ryan Holliday was popularizing Stoicism, I immediately thought of a novel that I read in 1998. That was A Man in Full by Tom Wolfe, which features a character who discovers Stoic philosophy, the works of Epictetus, while in prison and applies it to his life. One of the clearer mainstream fictional depictions of Stoic ideas in modern literature. And I thought that Ryan Holliday was just reliving this character's life. No, not exactly reliving this character's life, but popularizing Stoicism. Now, as a novel, A Man in Full is just so-so. You can read it if you want to, but Tom Wolfe wrote some better books. Now, I just want to get into these 26 rules for reading and give you my opinions. Rule number 1, don't just read more books, read the right books. Well, what the hell are the right books? And who is guarding this gate and saying what book is right and what book is wrong? Just about any book can be the right book for the right person at the right time. Dr. Faustus by Thomas Mann. This will be the right book for me sometime in 2026. At least I hope so. In the past, Richard Blade, The Bronze Axe by Geoffrey Lord was the right book. It is perhaps one of the silliest, most ridiculous science fiction novels ever written, but at the time, I really enjoyed it. This book can be the right book at the right time if you're in the mood for it. Or maybe for history. Maybe you want to know about Byzantium, the early years by John Julius Norwich. This can be the right book for the right person at the right time. It can also be the wrong book for some people who are just not giving a fig about Byzantium emperors or empire. Just not right for them. Rule number 2, speed reading is a scam. You have to spend a lot of time reading. Well, I'm a slow reader. Now, Steve Donahue will say that I'm subvocalizing when I'm reading, and that's why I read slow. But I don't subvocalize when I read. I just read slow. Other people will come up with other tricks, other rules, other lessons to help speed up reading. And yes, I think trying to force a higher reading speed than you are naturally inclined to is a bit of a scam, but it is also a skill. I could, in theory, teach myself to read faster and keep comprehension at the level that I want. But all these lessons that you can find on the internet or elsewhere, yeah, they're probably a scam. Rule number 3, you should always carry a book, phone, keys, and a book. Well, technically, I have my Kindle app on my phone, and my phone goes just about everywhere with me, so I do have access to books if I wanted to read them on the go. But when I'm on the go, I really don't have a lot of opportunity to read a book. Some people suggest that if you're waiting in the line to buy purchases at a grocery store or some other place, whip out your book and read 1 or 2 pages. I don't think I read in short bursts that effectively. I like to have a little bit of time to sit down and read, but other people are different. Maybe they can read a page or 2 at a time and just snatch that time whenever it's available. So yeah, carry some sort of book with you. I don't necessarily mean you have to carry a physical book. My iPhone has the Kindle app, and that would work just fine. Rule number 4, if you're not reading with a pen, you're not really reading. Horse crap. Horse crap. Horse crap. Do I need to say horse crap a few more times? You can absolutely read a book without a pen. I absolutely detest annotations in a book. I don't need to leave my comments on a pristine page. I like my books looking as new as you can get while reading them. And handwriting is just a bad idea. Now, maybe that's just personal to me because my handwriting looks like chicken scratches. My spelling is usually pretty bad. So if I were to take a pen to a book, you would have sloppily written words misspelled. And that's not even saying, do I have the right ideas to write down at the time? If you want to take notes on a book that you're reading, pull out a pad of paper. Write down your thoughts. Mark the page. Go back to it later and revise. Because you cannot revise an annotation in a book that is as permanent as a tattoo. Now, some people like the permanency of tattoos. I do not. And I absolutely think people should not, under any circumstances, annotate books. And if you do, that book is yours. You cannot give it to a used bookstore or sell it to a used bookstore because what if some poor schmo like me buys that book and does not look at the pages too intently? All of a sudden, I have your lousy annotations in a book. So, number 4, for one last time, horse crap. Rule number 5, mark your books. Fold pages. Beat them. I guess you're going to have one more horse crap in this video. Rule number 6, forget the news. The best way to understand what's happening in the world is by reading books, usually old books. Kinda, sorta, I agree with him a little bit. I spend way too much time doom scrolling on my phone, watching some videos, some commentary, some political news, or current happenings. And really, yeah, I could skip all of that and spend more time reading. However, I do need to be informed of what's happening in the news somehow. So you do have to get in all that current information, but don't doom scroll. Rule number 7, don't just read books, reread books. I absolutely agree with this. I reread a lot of books every year. Usually about 30% of the books that I read in a year are rereads because I like revisiting books. A book is like a river. It really isn't the same when you step into it twice. I have reread books that I loved when I was younger, and the older me kind of scratches my head and goes like, why did you ever like this book? And then I will reread a book that I did like and start discovering new things in that book that I didn't capture on the first read, or the second read, or even the third read, because some books can be read multiple times over a lifetime. Rule number 8, don't be a book snob. Read bestsellers. I kind of agree, although it's sort of a contradiction to rule number 1 about reading the right books. I'll hold this one up again. This is a trashy science fiction novel. It may not be a bestseller, but I think it's in the spirit of bestsellerdom, of just writing a book strictly to be entertaining. And I think people need to read bestsellers and entertaining books just because you want to. Rule number 9, never read without taking extracts. Horse crap. If Alison and Brian are right, what Brian is talking about is taking quotes out of a book, marking passages so you can repeat them to yourselves, sort of like a dictionary of quotations or something like that. Now, if you find a passage in a book that is very memorable and very meaningful to you, by all means, take an extract and use it. But you can read a book without taking those extracts and gain a lot of meaning and a lot of value out of that book. You do not need to take an extract from a book to enjoy it or find meaning from it. Rule number 10, if a book sucks, stop reading it. Absolutely. Not all books are for all people, and sometimes a reader is going to pick up a book that is just not suitable for that reader. And when that happens, you put that book down. Now, does the book technically suck? Well, maybe not to all readers, but if it sucks to you as a reader, absolutely put it down and move on to the next book. There are some readers out there who feel absolutely compelled to finish a book once they start reading it. Well, if you start reading a sucky book and you feel compelled to read it, I guess you're going to read a sucky book. For me, I'll put that book down. Rule number 11. The rule for quitting a book is 100 pages minus your age. This is not original. I heard this rule at least 10 years ago in a book club. And the idea is that life is short. When you're young, you have a lot more life, and you can waste it on a book that may not be great. But once you start getting older and time gets shorter, you don't have to give a book as long before you decide it sucks. This rule about the pages in your age, yeah, I understand why some people say that. But if you're in your mid-20s and you're on page 30 of a book that really truly sucks, you don't have to follow this rule. Rule number 12, good writers and good books are not difficult to read. Horse crap. Let me show you one of the most famous works of philosophy, Being and Time by Martin Heidegger. This book is not just hard. It is almost completely indecipherable to a layman or a lay reader. You need a lot of education, a lot of time, and a lot of effort to get to this work of philosophy. I did try to read this in my 20s, and I got about 30 pages into it. And I had a little bit of help. I bought some reference books to help me decipher it. See, I didn't buy just one book. I bought a lot of books on Heidegger to try to get me through that very difficult book. And then I bought these books. These aren't necessarily how to decipher Being in Time, but how to learn about Heidegger, the author himself, who was a Nazi. So not only are you going to learn about Nazism to understand Heidegger, you have to have all these reference books to get through Being in Time. So the only thing is Being in Time a good book? Was Heidegger a good author? According to Ryan Holliday, maybe he wasn't, because those books are really, really hard. Or maybe you want to talk about Ulysses by James Joyce. This is one of the greatest novels in the English language. It is a good book. James Joyce is a good author, but it's hard. You just cannot pick up this book and read it by itself. I read it with a group of 5 other readers, known as the Ulysses 6, and there's no way I could have enjoyed this book as much without their help. So, hard books Or should I say, good books can be hard. Rule number 13, ask people you admire for book recommendations. Absolutely. You also have to prepare yourself that the person you admire may have different tastes in books than you do. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Rule 14, cool titles usually make for crappy books. The Origin of Consciousness in the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind by Julian James. That's one freaking hell of a cool book. And it is a cool book. It is rather difficult to explain. It is psychology. It is philosophy. It is linguistics. It is definitely a cool book. I'm not sure that Julian James actually has it right. I think he made some stunning leaps of logic to get to his conclusion, but it is one freaking cool book and a cool title. So cool books can have cool titles. I think what he's saying is don't try to make your title overly flashy. That a simple title is sometimes the best. And I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. Rule 15, look for wisdom. Don't just memorize facts. Yeah, I actually think that's a pretty important rule of reading. Look what the book is trying to tell you. Understand the author. You don't necessarily have to memorize all the details, all the facts. That is what the internet is for, at least for some things. Love the book. Understand what's being said. Don't try to memorize everything because really, I can't remember jack anymore. So I have to look up stuff a lot. Rule 16, ask yourself, what do I plan to do with this information? What information? Information that you gather while reading a book? You don't have to do anything with that information. It can sit in your memory or it can recede in your memory. Either one is fine. It sort of implies that you're reading books for a purpose, like a how-to manual, how to build a fence. If you read a book, How to Build a Fence, maybe you'll want to go out and build a fence. Or maybe, just maybe, you're curious about how fences are built. And you read a book, and you have all this information in your head, and then you decide, I don't need a fence. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to do anything with the information you learn from books. If you want to do something, build a fence, study history, study philosophy, and try to grow as a person from that information, that's fine too. But you don't have to do anything. Rule number 17, in every book you read, try to find your next one in its footnotes. Horse crap. Double horse crap on that one. Well, first of all, not every book that I read is going to have footnotes. Some books that I read are fiction. Some books that I read may be poetry or short stories. And even some nonfiction may not have footnotes. Personal memoirs, for example, may not have footnotes. Now, if I am reading a book on the Civil War, and I'm really interested in the Civil War and learning more about the Civil War, yeah, maybe I can find my next book in the footnotes of a Civil War history. But I may not. I may decide that after reading one book on the Civil War, I know enough about it. I don't have to pursue that subject anymore. It's going to depend on the reader and the reader's choices. You don't have to look for more books and footnotes. Rule number 18, when you find an author you love, read all of their books. And all is capitalized in my notes. Horse crap. I have read a couple books by Charles Dickens, and some of them I loved, like Bleak House. But I would not want to read all of the books of Charles Dickens because Charles Dickens wrote a freaking lot of books. I recently read a book, King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. It was a fun 19th century adventure novel. But Haggard wrote more than 20 books. I will probably eventually read more books by Haggard, but I'm not going to read them all. Now, an exception may be someone like John Williams. He wrote 4 novels over a lifetime, and I've actually read all of his novels because I did love his books. And he's only written 4, so it's possible to read all of his books. But Haggard, Dickens, no, I'm not going to read them all. Rule number 19. If you see a book you want, buy it. Don't worry about the price. I have to be concerned about the wisdom of this rule. There are a lot of people out in society right now who just cannot afford to buy any book they want. They have to look at their budget. There are people who are struggling to pay rent, buy groceries, buy pet food, and whatnot. And they may have to make a choice if they see a book that they really want. Maybe it's by a favorite author, and they just don't have the money. Don't stick it on a credit card and incur debt just to acquire this book. You may have to wait a bit of time to buy the book. Maybe you can get it from the library or some such way. But really, this is a rule written by someone from a stance of privilege. Ryan Holliday, maybe he can afford to buy any book that he wants to. But other people really have to watch out. This could be a really bad rule for some people on a budget. Rule number 20, don't judge a book by its cover. Also, you kind of should. Yeah, I think I understand where he's coming from, that some books really have really bad covers, especially nowadays. And in the old days, some books had some really fantastic covers. I love old pulpy covers. But some of those old pulpy covers really weren't very good books. It's just the cover. It's such splendid artwork that you had to buy the book. And maybe that's where he's going. Rule number 21, build an anti-library, a stack of unread books that humbles you. Why is he calling this an anti-library? Behind me are very many books that I have not read. They are still my library. They are not an anti-library. I have enough physical books that I have not read to last me at least 10 years, even if I never purchased another book. And I like that. I'm not even counting digital books, of which I have even more. The Japanese have a term for this, tosunduku, the phenomenon of acquiring reading materials but letting them pile up in a home without reading them. The term is often used to refer to unread books on a bookshelf meant for reading later, and this is used as a positive term. Umberto Eco had a personal library of over 50,000 books because he says, someday you may want to read a book and you want to have it on the shelf for when you want to read it. Rule 22, read books and writers you disagree with. Yeah, I think this is a pretty important rule. As an eclectic reader, I don't want to limit myself to reading just one type of book. There are many types of fiction, many types of nonfiction, and some of these authors are going to have ideas and subjects that you really disagree with, or that I really disagree with. But sometimes you want to learn what the other side is thinking. Rule number 23, don't be satisfied just getting the gist of things. Sometimes the gist of things is entirely sufficient. If I read a subject on history, one book, maybe that subject just does not interest me very much, and I just get the gist of the history of the subject, but I don't want to pursue it further. That's entirely fine. Rule number 24, prefaces and forewords are there for a reason. Don't skip them. Maybe yes, maybe no. If the preface or foreword is part of the book's original publication, then yeah, you should read it and not skip it. If the book is a reprint and you have a preface or a foreword by a different author or editor, maybe you can skip that. This is especially true of like novels written in translation. Maybe you can skip the translator's foreword, or maybe not. It's not absolutely necessary to always read these things, but usually you can go back and read them after you finish the book. Rule number 25, if a book is really good, recommend it and pass it along. I kind of agree with parts of this statement. If a book is really good, I will recommend it. I have a YouTube channel where I recommend books that I like. Would I pass along a physical copy of a book that I owned and read to give to someone else? Maybe not. I'm not a person who gives away my books very easily. Rule number 26, find great stuff and suck everything you can out of it. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's possible to read a book, to understand parts of it, to enjoy it, and then to move on. For example, The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. In almost every chapter, there is so much depth that you could dig into. You could spend years studying that book, reading many books based on what you find in that text. But you don't have to do that. I just read The Magic Mountain. I don't claim to be an expert in it. There are many things that I could suck out of that book that are still there waiting for me if I ever choose to reread it, or maybe I won't choose to reread it. I'll let that knowledge sit untouched. I am perfectly happy with those results. Now, this is Ryan Holiday's philosophy, I think, that reading is a process. It is like lifting weights. You are trying to build muscle mass. You are trying to get your brain to gather more and more and find information that you can use and convey to other people. But where is just the enjoyment of reading? Why not just sit down with a book, a novel, a memoir, a work of history, even philosophy, and just enjoy it and not worry about what you're going to do with that information or if there's more information remaining in that book yet undiscovered. Okay, that is my opinions of the 26 rules for reading in 2026. I encourage other people to make a response video to these 26 rules. I'd like to see some more people doing it. Thank you for watching and keep on reading.